Parkers at once. No time to lose. Go to the drawing room, girls. Matthews, get the other Parkers out of their chaise. Mr. Bennet! Mr. Bennet! Mr. Bennet!
Yes, my dear.
Mr. Bennet. Netherfield Park has been let at last.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear me? Netherfield Park has been let at last.
Indeed, Mrs. Bennet.
Well, don't you want to hear who's taken it?
Well, you want to tell me? I have no objection to hearing it.
Mr. Bingley is his name, and it seems he's a young man of large fortune, and he's single, my dear. Think of it. Oh, what a fine thing for our girls.
Is it?
Mr. Bennet, you know perfectly well what I mean. I'm thinking of his marrying one of our daughters.
Oh. Is that his design in settling here?
How can you talk so, Mr. Bennet? This is a serious matter. You must go and visit him at once.
You and the girls go. Or better still, send the girls by themselves. You're as handsome as any of them. And Mr. Bingley may like you best of all.
Oh, my dear, you flatter me. When a woman has 5 grown-up daughters, she ought to give over thinking of her own beauty.
Well, in most such cases, a woman hasn't much beauty to think of, my dear.
Now, seriously, Mr. Bennet, you must go and see Mr. Bingley. If you don't, Sir William and Lady Lucas will get there before us. You should have seen her galloping her horses to beat me from the village just now.
Did she win?
Indeed she did not. But she'd stop at nothing to get Mr. Bingley interested in her Charlotte.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do, my dear. I'll write to assure him of my hearty consent to his marrying whichever he chooses of the girls. Though I must throw in a good word for my Lizzie.
Elizabeth is not one whit better than the others. But you always give her the preference.
Oh, they're all silly and ignorant like most girls. But Lizzie has some glimmerings of sense.
Mr. Bennet, how can you abuse your own children in such a way? You take delight in vexing me. You've no compassion on my poor nerves.
Oh, you mistake me, my dear. I have the highest respect for your nerves. I have heard you mention them with consideration for the last 20 years.
How can you be so resigned to your daughters growing up to be penniless old maids? Leaving everything to that cousin of yours, that odious Mr. Collins.
Mrs. Bennet, for the 1000th time. This estate was entailed when I inherited it. It must, by law, go to a male heir. A male heir, Mrs. Bennet. And as possibly you remember, we have no son.
All the more reason why you should take some responsibility about getting husbands for them. No, you escape into your unintelligible books and leave everything to me. Look at them. 5 of them without dowries. What's to become of them?
Yes, what is to become of the wretched creatures? Perhaps we should have drowned some of them at birth.
Mr. Bennet.
I'm glad you didn't drown me, Papa. Much too nice just being alive, even if I never had a husband.
Well, I hope Mr. Bingley likes the hat.
We are not in the way of knowing what Mr. Bingley likes, since we're not to meet him. Mary, stop pecking. Don't keep on coughing, Kitty. Good heavens. Have a little compassion on my poor nerves.
Well, Kitty has no discretion in her coughs. She times them ill.
I don't cough for my own amusement, Mamma. Mamma, why aren't we to meet Mr. Bingley?
Don't speak about Mr. Bingley. I'm sick of him.
Eh? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, my dear. If I'd known that you'd feel like this, I shouldn't have gone out of my way to make his acquaintance last week. Oh, it's very unlucky. I even gave him tickets to the Assembly Ball.
No.
And I believe he intends to make himself known to you there.
Mr. Bennet, you've been acquainted with him all the time.
Since he signed his lease at Netherfield, my dear.
Oh, Papa.
I told him that you had 5 daughters, Papa.
Well, I told him if he ran into 5 of the silliest girls in England, they would be my daughters.
Divideremo pertanto la storia naturale in storia delle generazioni, storia delle pretergenerazioni.
Mamma, il nastro per piacere! Uffa, Elisabeth! Sì? La mamma dice che devi cucirmi lo tempo!
Scusami, vieni, te lo appunto io.
Ah sì, non è necessario, perché questo è il mio, il tuo è questo macchiato. Ma è la seconda volta! Ma non è affatto vero!
Basta, ragazze, basta, non discutete.
Sì, mamma!
Ah. Divideremo pertanto la storia naturale in storia delle generazioni, storia delle pretergenerazioni.
Buonasera.
Buonasera.
Sono pronta, signor Bennet?
Ma non credo ancora, cara Charlotte. Ma se lei ha il coraggio di salire da loro, può darsi che loro si decidano a scendere.
Forse sarà meglio per me.
Prego.
Oh, cara, mi era sembrato di sentire la carrozza.
Buonasera, signora.
Buonasera, fatti vedere. Sei stata molto gentile a venire a prenderci. Bella figura avremmo fatto arrivando Netherfield a piedi. Già, perché dei nostri cavalli ce n'è sempre bisogno alla fattoria, vero, Bennet?
Charlotte stava per salire dalle ragazze.
Prego di loro di scendere subito, altrimenti arriveremo quando le altre avranno già riempito il carnetto.
Per carità, signora Elisabeth.
Muore dalla voglia di vedere che vestito si mettono, che curiosa.
Se anche il loro è come il tuo, saranno le più belle della festa. Anche se un po' accidenti, un po' scomode.
Cara mi lusinghi, certo tu lo sai, ho avuto anch'io la mia parte di bellezza, ma oramai non pretendo di essere niente di eccezionale. Capirai. Certo mi conservo meravigliosamente bene, d'accordo?
Buona,
ma insomma, ma quando una donna ha 4 figlie da marito deve rinunciare all'idea della propria avvenenza, vero?
Senti, in questo caso è raro che una donna ne possegga ancora tanta da doversene preoccupare.
Tu dici? Spero che almeno una delle mie figliole possa piacere al nostro nuovo vicino. Uno scapolo ricchissimo! La provvidenza non poteva premiarmi meglio. 4-5 mila sterline di rendita all'anno nel castello di Netherfield. Oh, che sistemazione!
Senti, io sono pronto a scommettere che il signor Bingley non ha la più lontana voglia di sposarsi. Si dice che abbia affittato il castello solamente per andare a caccia con gli amici.
Beh, e perché darebbe questa festa? Io ti dico che va a caccia di molli. E se tu mi aiutassi entrando in relazione d'amicizia con lui?
No, senti, è meglio di no. In coscienza non me la sentirei di consigliare nessuno a sposare una delle mie figliole. Per Elisabeth sì, potrei mettere una buona parola, ma per le altre...
Senti, Elisabeth non è per niente migliore delle altre. Non è bella neanche la metà di Jenny. E non ha metà dello spirito di Lidia né della grazia di Mary. Ma naturalmente tu dai a lei a preferenza, forse perché è nata per la prima. Sei terribilmente monotono, anche nei sentimenti. Presto, ragazze, presto!
Sarà, ma per me nessuna ha granché da far valere. Sono tutte piuttosto sciocchine e abbastanza ignoranti. Solo Elisabeth ha un'intelligenza più sveglia e poi è meno noiosa delle sorelle.
Bennet, ma come puoi parlare in questa maniera delle tue creature? Ma davvero, sai, ti diverti ad agitarmi in questo momento che sono così tormentata? Non hai pietà dei miei poveri nervi?
Ti sbagli, cara, ho il più gran rispetto per i tuoi nervi. Sono i miei migliori amici. Da 25 anni vivono con noi giorno e notte, non ci abbandonano un momento.
Tu non sai quanto soffro.
Speriamo che ti rimetterai presto e vivrai abbastanza per consigliare le tue figliole e sperando di trovare qualche brillante giovanotto.
Senti, caro, se ne arrivassero centinaia, che cosa conterebbe per te? Dal momento che le tue figliole sono tutte stupide e ignoranti. Che bellezza! Bene, guarda che splendore! Ragazzi, mettetevi là che vi guardi, che vi ammiri in fila! Oh! Lascia scendere questa sottana, tu! Mary! Ma chi t'ha fatto quel fiocco? Su con le spalle!
La mamma stasera sembra un generale alla vigilia della battaglia.
Dovresti dimagrare un po', Charlotte.
Ma per la mamma sono sempre troppo magra.
Contenta lei, cara. Andiamo, ragazzi, andiamo.
perché arrivare troppo presto da provinciali, ma troppo tardi da screanzati.
Speriamo abbia invitato anche gli ufficiali. Lo credo bene, altrimenti che presto sarebbe.
Avanti! Sì, ma ti sgualcisci tutta, cara. Papà e mamma Charlotte non vengono?
Sì, signora, verranno più tardi, rimanderò loro la carrozza.
Bene, sarebbe un vero peccato per Lady Lucas perdere una serata così importante.
Buonanotte, papà.
Buonanotte, piccola.
Buonanotte, papà.
Buonanotte.
Papà.
Buonanotte.
Buonanotte, papà.
Buonanotte.
Oh, sai, dicono che ha un amico dal quale non si divide mai, un amico d'infanzia. Sembra che siano venuti insieme da Londra.
Bene, quando lo saprà la mamma non starà in sì dalla gioia. 2 partiti, 2 speranze invece.
Bennet, simmi vicino con lo spirito. Stasera ne ho proprio bisogno.
Non temere, cara. Tutte le volte che stai per parlare, taci e mi sentirai vicino. Buonanotte. Buonanotte. Ah. Se Dio vuole. Divideremo pertanto la storia naturale in storia delle generazioni, storia delle pretergenerazioni e storia delle rigenerazioni.
Zo straft tegenwoordig een dochter haar arme vader, omdat ze nog steeds niet gehuwd is.
Mary, kinderen, Jane, Elisabeth.
Wat is er, mama?
Kind, waar is je vader?
In zijn studeerkamer, mama.
Goed nieuws, mijn kind. Kinderen, goed nieuws voor ons allemaal. Meneer Bennet.
Wat is er, mama? Wat is er, mama?
Beste meneer Bennet, goed nieuws voor ons allemaal. Netherfield Park is eindelijk verhuurd.
Of is dat alles?
Is dat alles? Maar ben je niet nieuwsgierig wie het gehuurd heeft?
Nou, jij brandt van verlangen om het te vertellen. En ik ben niet ongenegen om het te vernemen.
Hij is jong, schatrijk en komt uit het noorden van Engeland. Ik heb het zo even van Lady Lucas gehoord. Hij heeft een inkomen van 5.000 of 6.000 pond sterling per jaar.
Is hij getrouwd?
Nee, jong, maar uiteraard. Zou ik me voor een getrouwde man zo opwinden?
Ik heb dat ongenoegen wel eens mogen beleven.
Nou, dan ben jij de enige. Voor een moeder van 4 dochters. Ze komen getrouwde mannen niet in vraag.
En hoe is de naam van dit pronkstuk der Britse belastingbetaler?
Bingley. Charles of James. Dat wil me niet te binnen schieten, maar in ieder geval Bingley.
En hoe is het verband van deze vreemdeling in onze gewesten met jou, mij en eventueel onze dochter?
Waarom breek je toch niet eens met de gewoonte je altijd zo vervelend aan te stellen? Het is toch een algemeen bekende waarheid dat een alleenstaande man met een groot vermogen vrouw nodig heeft.
En zou je uit het noorden van Engeland alleen hier naartoe gereisd zijn om die te zoeken onder mijn dochters?
Waarom niet?
Nou, dan kan ik hem bij voorbaat geen geluk wensen. Hè? Ze zijn onnozel en kinderachtig als alle meisjes. Ja, zulke had hij dat kind zo kunnen vinden. En met minder kosten.
Helaas, voor je eigen plezier en tot ons alles schade. Geen meisje zo aanbiddelijk als onze Jean. En geen ander meisje met zo'n vrolijk, vurig temperament als onze Lydia.
Nou, dat hangt af van het oog dat ze beziet. Hè? Nou, laten we hopen dat de ogen van de heer Bingley nog maar half zijn opengegaan. Hoewel, ik moet zeggen dat mijn Lizzie nog zo'n slechte keus niet zou zijn.
Lizzie is geen haar beter dan de andere.
Niet beter, maar bij haar hebben we tenminste zout en peper niet vergeten.
Jij trekt altijd Lizzie voor.
Zoals gezegd, veel deugden om uit te stallen hebben ze geen van allen. Pas maar op dat de heer Bingley jou niet kiest als hij je dochters ziet.
Het is onverwacht vleiend het zo te stellen, maar met 4 dochters denk ik niet meer aan mijn eigen schoonheid.
Dat doet een vrouw alleen niet wanneer ze inderdaad voorbij is, die schoonheid van dat leren. Bij jou weet ik altijd nog zeer in het oog springende facetten te ontdekken, die mij vermogen te boeien. Zo, kom.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mary?
1, 2,
Mary?
4.
Spinet heeft voor vandaag genoeg kwellingen ondergaan. Hè? Laat het instrument nu met rust en zoek een andere, minder hartstochtelijke bezigheid.
Mijn lieve, we moeten terstond maatregelen nemen.
Huh? Maatregelen? Wat voor maatregelen?
Jij moet er ogenblikkelijk een bezoek brengen.
Waar?
Op Netherfield.
En waarom ogenblikkelijk?
Ja, natuurlijk, Lady Lucas staat al klaar om hem in te palmen, om de eerste te zijn. Ze heeft toch Charlotte en Marie hem onder dak te brengen.
Nou, het spijt me. Hè.
Wat?
Nou, ik heb er geen enkel bezwaar tegen om een jonkman, welke dan ook, met een inkomen van 4.000 of 5.000 per jaar, in de gelegenheid te stellen mijn dochters de parade af te nemen, maar ik ben niet van zins om daar zelf ook maar een been voor te verzetten.
Je weigert te gaan?
Bepaaldelijk, ja.
Oh, waar moet de eerste stap in de wereld toch altijd door een man gedaan worden? Etiketten. Maar er komt een andere tijd. Er komt een tijd dat we jullie een hak zullen zetten. Dat wij sterk zullen zijn en jullie zwak. Dan zal het een vader zorg zijn te zorgen dat zijn zonen geen oude jonge jonkmannen wordt.
We zullen meneer Bingley stellig op het aanstaande bal ontmoeten, mama.
Natuurlijk. En Lady Lucas zal hem zeker aan ons willen voorstellen.
Lady Lucas heeft zelf 2 dochters. Ik vertrouw haar niet meer dan mezelf. Schei uit met die geluiden, Mary. Zulke geluiden doen denken aan slechte verborgen gebreken in je gestel.
Ik hoest niet van mijn plezier.
Spaar mijn zenuwen!
Wanneer hebben we het bal, Lizzie?
Morgen over 14 dagen.
Oh, hemeltje lief. Dan zal Lady Lucas er nog niet zijn. Die zal logeren. Die zal er niet zijn de avond voor het feest. Die kan jullie niet aan hem voorstellen omdat ze hem zelf nog niet zou kennen.
Nou, dat zal dan een punt zijn in jouw voordeel.
Mijn voordeel?
Ja.
Hoezo, papa?
Omdat je het pronkjuweel dan aan haar kunt voorstellen.
Ja, maar papa...
Nou, kinderen, luister niet naar hem. Weer zo'n gril stoeien met woorden om onze verwarring te brengen. Oh, mijn zenuwen. Waar ze maar niet zo delicaat. Dan zou ik je een staartje geven van je eigen wrangenbedenksels. Schei alsjeblieft nu uit met die meneer Bingley. Ik wil nu niets meer over hem horen.
Dat is jammer.
Waarom?
Nou, dan had ik me vanochtend de moeite kunnen besparen om hem voor dag en dauw een bezoek te brengen.
Bent u dan al bij hem geweest, papa?
Dat was de kern van mijn betoog, ja. Ja, het spijt me, mijn lieve, maar het zal niet gemakkelijk zijn om ons nu aan zijn tegenbezoek te onttrekken, hè?
Ik wist wel dat je dochters je veel lief waren om ze zo'n kans te laten ontglippen. Welk een gezinshoofd! Welk een vaderkinderen! Welk een echtgenoot! Jane, was de maan naar boven om je kleren naar te kijken. En Lizzie en Lydia, jullie direct naar de modieste om handschoenen te halen. Linten en grets, veren, veel veren, kinderen, vlieg zo hard je kunt! Meneer Bennet, meneer Bennet!
Dear Lady Lucas, Netherfield Park must be let at last. So it is, Mrs. Bennet. But who can have taken it? It has stood empty for more than a 12 months. It has been taken by a young man. A young man? Who is he?
a young man of large fortune from the north of England. He came down on Monday in a chaise and four to see the place, and was so much delighted with it he has agreed to take it immediately. A young man of large fortune. Tell me, Lady Lucas, how large a fortune? Well, his father died recently and left him the sum of £100,000. Which, properly invested in 4%, yields him £5,000 a year. £5,000 a year? Oh, Mr. Bennet will certainly visit him. Sir William has already made the young man's acquaintance. He pronounces him to be a fine, agreeable, upstanding young man, and not a day above 23.
Thank you, Lady Lucas. Good day.
Goodbye.
Mr. Bennet! Mr. Bennet! Mr. Bennet! Mr. Bennet! Mr. Bennet!
Mamma has heard the news. Dear Mamma.
Not want to know his name?
You want to tell me, and I have no objection to hearing it.
His name is Bingley.
Is he married or single?
Oh, single, my dear, to be sure. A single man of large fortune. What a fine thing for our girls.
How so? How can it affect them?
How can you be so tiresome, my dear Mr. Bennet? You must know I am thinking of his marrying one of them.
Ah, is that his design for settling here?
Design? Nonsense. How can you talk so? It is very likely that he may fall in love with one of them. Therefore you must go and visit him as soon as he comes.
I see no occasion for that. You and the girls may go, or you can send them by themselves, which perhaps would be the best. For as you are as handsome as any of them, Mr. Bingley might like you the best of the party.
My dear, you flatter me. I certainly have had my share of beauty, but I do not pretend to be anything extraordinary now. No, you must go and see Mr. Bingley.
I will write him a few lines to assure him of my hearty consent to his marrying whichever of the girls he chooses, though I must throw in a good word for my little Lizzie.
If he has not a lively mind, I do not care if he has 20,000 a year. And which is more important still, an amiable disposition.
If he came back in a scarlet coat, I'd take him without a farthing. If he's not in the militia, we won't even speak to him, will we?
Where will you find your heroes, Lydia, when this war is ended?
Lord, by that time I shall be an old woman anyway, so I shan't care.
Why do you always make Lizzie the favourite? I'm sure she's not half as handsome as Jane, nor half as good-humoured as Lydia. But you're always giving her the preference.
None of them have much to recommend them, but Lizzie has something more of quickness than her sisters.
Mr. Bennet, how can you abuse your own children in such a way? You take a delight in vexing me. You have no compassion on my poor nerves.
You mistake me, my dear. I have high regard for your nerves. They're my old friends. We have lived together these 20 years.
Oh, you do not know what I suffer.
No, but I hope that you will get over it and live to see many young men of fortune come into the neighbourhood.
It'll be no such use to us if 20 such should come, since you will not visit them.
You may depend upon it, dear, that when there are 20, I will visit them all.
Lower, Salter. Lower. The bodice should be lower.
Oh, madam, I beg you to desist. What may look very well at St. James is hardly suitable for Meryton.
Nonsense, child. Our Hertfordshire society can stand beside any in England. Besides, you may meet Mr. Bingley.
Mr. Bingley is a young man who will hardly interest himself in a woman of 27 who has never been handsome. I know my own competency, and do not wish to overstrain it.
You underprize your capability, my dear. Mr. Bingley is new to Hertfordshire, and may be proud to ally himself to the family of the former Mayor of Meryton, and one who has been honoured by his sovereign. A man should count himself happy who could call his father-in-law Sir William.
Did you hear that Colonel Forster means to turn away James? My aunt should engage him, for she needs a footman.
Well, James, do you like it?
I hope Mr. Bingley will like it, Lizzie.
I do not care about Mr. Bingley, sir, so long as I have your approbation.
Well, I am sick of Miss Bingley.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but why did you not say so before? It's very unlucky, but since I've already paid him a visit, it'll be hard to escape the acquaintance now.
Oh, are you, my dear Mr. Bennet? I knew I should persuade you at last. Oh, how pleased I am. What an excellent father you have, girls. I do not know how you will ever make him amends for his kindness. Or me either, for that matter. At our time of life, it is not so easy, I can tell you, to be making new acquaintances every day. But for your sakes, we would do anything.
Mamma, why do you not invite him to dinner?
His name is Mr. Bingley. He is unmarried and well under 30. What a wonder. A single man in possession of a good fortune coming to live at Netherfield.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that such a man must be in want of a wife.
Of course. He is the rightful property of one or other of the neighbourhood daughters.
However little is known of his character, Charlotte.
Little need be known, Eliza. Happiness in marriage is entirely a matter of chance. It is best to know as little as possible of the defects of the person with whom you are to pass your life.
You make me laugh, Charlotte. But it is not sound. You know it is not sound. And that you would never act that way yourself. Never.
Did your mother know Mr. Bennet before she married him? Did he know her?
You are too shrewd, Charlotte. Then my father is remarkable. So odd a mixture of quick parts and caprice, that even after 20 years my mother still fails to understand him. Her mind is less difficult to comprehend.
A single man of large fortune from the north. Well, what a thing for our girls, Mr. Bennet.
How so, Mrs. Bennet? How can it affect them?
But how can you be so tiresome? I depend upon him marrying one of them.
Indeed? Is that his design in settling here?
Design? Nonsense, how can you talk so? But it is very likely he may fall in love with one of them. Therefore, you must visit him at once. Will it be impossible for us to visit him if you do not?
You are over-scrupulous, my dear, surely. These are desperate times. 5 daughters, all unmarried. And this house, this land, entailed away to a cousin when you have finally driven me to my death. And what's to become of you? I know what will become of me. Well, I'll tell you what I will do. I will write a few brief lines to assure our new neighbour that he has my hearty consent to his marrying whichever he chooses of the girls. Oh, he'll have a hard time.
Oh, he will, he will. Of course, Jane is the eldest. He will be sensitive to that.
They all being equally silly and ignorant like other girls, except possibly my little Lizzie. Oh, pass me my pen. There's no time to be lost.
You take delight in vexing me. You have no compassion for my nerves.
You mistake me, my dear. I have a high regard for your nerves. They are my old friends. I've heard you mention them with consideration these 20 years at least.
You will not wait upon Mr. Bingley.
I assure you, Mrs. Bennet, I will not. I hope Mr. Bingley may like it, Lizzie.
How are we to know what Mr. Bingley likes, since we are not to visit?
But you forget, Mamma. Mrs. Long promised to introduce him to us at the assembly.
I do not believe Mrs. Long would do any such thing. She's a selfish woman and has 2 nieces of her own. Only 1 or 2 of you have been boys. The rest would have had brothers to bring their friends home. And we would not be so in want of male company and protection.
We have father for company.
I referred to male company that spoke, Jane. Don't keep coughing so, Kitty, for heaven's sake. You tear my nerves to pieces.
He might admire Lizzie's new hat, perhaps, and be useful for that.
Oh, I am sick of Mr. Bingley.
Oh, dear, I'm sorry to hear that, but why didn't you tell me so before? If I'd known this morning, I certainly wouldn't have called on him. Still, most unfortunate. But as I have actually paid the call, we cannot escape the acquaintance now.
Mr. Bennet, I have wronged you.
What is he like? Oh, Father, do tell us.
Mr. Bingley is, well, quite young, reasonably handsome, has no wife, 5 sisters, but only 2 here at Netherfield. He's not averse to local company, and even means to attend the next assembly ball with a large party. To To be fond of dancing is a certain step towards falling in love, and falling in love to marrying. You may rest at peace, my dear wife.
Oh, what an excellent father you have, girls. Have I not always told you so? I do not know how we will make amends for his kindness. Lydia, my love, you must have a new dress. Although you are the youngest, I dare say Mr. Bingley will dance with you at the ball.
I may be the youngest and the smallest, but I'm not afraid.
Mr. Bennet, will Mr. Bingley soon be returning your call? Did he furnish you with that impression? You did tell him about the girls.
As little as possible, Mrs. Bennet. In view of their ignorance and silliness, it seemed sensible. I dare say he may call. And now I've said all I will say on the subject, and I do not wish to hear any more about it. And Kitty,
Yes, Papa?
you may now cough as much as you choose.
My dear Mr. Bennet, wonderful news. Netherfield Park is let at last.
Is it?
Yes, it is, for I have just had it from Mrs. Long. And do you not want to know who has taken it?
You want to tell me, and I have no objection to hearing it.
Why, then it is taken by a young man of large fortune from the north of England. A single man of large fortune, my dear. He came down on Monday in a chaise and four to see the place. His name is Bingley, and he will be in possession by Michaelmas, and he has 5,000 a year. What a fine thing for our girls.
How so? How can it affect them?
Oh, Mr. Bennet, how can you be so tiresome? You must know that I'm thinking of his marrying one of them.
For a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife.
Yes, he must indeed. And who better than one of our 5 girls?
What a fine joke if he were to choose me.
Or me?
So that is his design in settling here, to marry one of our daughters.
Design? Oh, how can you talk such nonsense? But you know he may very likely fall in love with one of them. Therefore, you must visit him directly he comes.
Visit him? Oh, no, I see no occasion for that.
Oh, Mr. Bennet!
Go yourself with the girls. Or, still better, send them by themselves.
By themselves?
Aye, for you're as handsome as any of them. Mr. Bingley might like you best of the party.
Lydia.
Distressed. Well, Mr. Bennet says he will not visit Mr. Bingley when he comes.
Oh, there.
Oh,
can't you reason with him? I dare say it without to meet anyone.
No, it will not. For he is bent on ruining us all.
Mama, I'm sure he is teasing you. He will call on Mr. Bingley as sure as he would call on any new neighbour of ours.
No, Jane, how can you say that? You heard it yourself. And you know that your father has a will of iron.
You're in the right, my dear. But I'll tell you what I'll do. I shall write to Mr. Bingley, informing him that I have 5 daughters, and he's welcome to any of them that he chooses. They're all silly and ignorant like other girls. Well, Lizzie has a little more wit than the rest. But then he may prefer a stupid wife, as others have done before him. There, will that do?
No, I beg you will not write at all if you... Oh, you take delight in vexing me. You have no compassion on my poor nerves.
You mistake me, my dear. I have a high respect for your nerves. They've been my old friends these 20 years at least.
You don't know what I suffer.
Well, I hope you will get over it and live to see many young men of 5,000 a year come into the neighbourhood.
It will be no use to us if 20 such should come, since you will not visit them.
Depend upon it, my dear. When there are 20, I'll visit them all.
You see, Jane? He will not be prevailed upon. He'll see us all ruined.
Lizzie! Wait till you hear our news!
Mr. Bingley has come to Netherfield.
And Sir William
Lucas has called on him. Save your breath to cool your porridge, Kitty. I will tell Mamma.
I do not wish to know. What should we care for Mr. Bingley, since we are never to be acquainted with him?
Mamma!
Don't keep coughing so, Kitty. For heaven's sake, have a little compassion on my nerves.
It is for my own amusement.
servants?
40 servants, and he's very handsome and wears a blue coat.
And he declared to Sir William that he loves to dance.
And he's promised to come to the next ball.
At the assembly rooms.
On Saturday.
And bring 6 ladies and 4 gentlemen.
No, it was 12 ladies and 7 gentlemen.
Too many ladies.
Oh, Lydia, I beg you would stop. For we are never to know Mr. Bingley, and it pains me to hear of him.
But, Mamma...
I am sick of Mr. Bingley.
I'm sorry to hear that. If I'd known as much this morning, I should never have called on him.
You have called on him?
I'm afraid we cannot escape the acquaintance now.
My dear Mr. Bennet, how good you are to us.
Yeah, well.
Oh, girls, is he not a good father? And never to tell us what a good joke. Oh, and now you shall all dance with Mr. Bingley.
I hope he has a strong constitution, Mamma.
And a fondness for silly young women.
Oh, my dear Mr. Bennet, nothing you say shall ever vex me again.
I'm sorry to hear it. Well, Kitty, I think you may cough as much as you choose now.
My dear Mr. Bennet, have you heard? Netherfield Park is let at last. Do you not want to know who has taken it?
But as you wish to tell me, my dear, I doubt I have any choice in the matter.
Kitty, what have I told you about listening at the door? Never mind that. There's a Mr. Bingley right from the north. 5,000 a year. Really? He's single?
Who's single? Mr. Bingley, apparently.
And how can that possibly affect them?
Oh, Mr. Bennet, how can you be so tiresome? You know he must marry one of them.
Aha, so that is his design in settling here.
You must go and visit him at once.
Good heavens. People.
For we may not visit if you do not, as you well know, Mr. Bennet. You're listening, you never listen. You must, Papa, at once.
There's no need. I already have.
Have? Oh, Mr. Bennet, how can you tease me so? Have you no compassion for my poor nerves?
Oh, you mistake me, my dear. I have the highest respect for them. They've been my constant companions these 20 years.
Papa? Is he amiable?
Who? Is he handsome? Who?
He's sure to be handsome.
With 5,000 a year, it would not matter if he had warts and a leer.
Who's got warts?
I will give my hearty consent to his marrying whichever of the girls he chooses.
So will he come to the ball tomorrow, Papa?
I believe so.
What it was, no, please, Jane. I need you to make this. Please, Jane, I lent you my green slippers. They were mine. Oh, well, then I'll do your mending for a week. Oh, retrim your new bonnet. 2 weeks. And I'll pay 2 weeks, I'll do it. So you don't worry me.